Hey everybody, I'm Grandmaster Ben Finegold. This is our weekly lecture series. This is one of the more unusual lectures, which is good because that means nobody ever gave the lecture before. If I gave a lecture on, Capablanca, probably find 6 or 7 lectures on Capablanca on the internet, or maybe more, maybe 600 or 700. Okay. This lecture, which is, and before I start, even though I started, that doesn't make any sense. This lecture will be the most things that I've pronounced incorrectly because this lecture has to do with Slovakian chess players from a certain town. And I'm going to pronounce the town wrong, the sponsor's name wrong, and all the players' names wrong. And I also know one of the players, but I still can't pronounce his name. So I apologize. I'm American. There's nothing I can do. The name of the lecture is Great Slovakian Players from Trenčín, which is a small town. And typically in a small town, the internet's claims they have about 55,000 people. I live in Roswell, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta. We have a lot more than that. Though I think Roswell, Georgia has a lot of chess players. But these are great chess players from that town, although that would depend on your definition of great. And if you sponsor a lecture, you can call anybody great you want. You're sponsoring the lecture. It's the 8th largest municipality in Slovakia. It also has a castle, which looks really cool on the internet. And it's going to be the European capital of culture in 2026. It's got to be good for tourism. There's a Wikipedia article about the town. I read the Wikipedia article before the lecture a couple hours ago, and the thing that stuck out at me about the town was they have a lot of NHL players. In my opinion, which is probably wrong, if you took any town in the world with that size, they don't have as many NHL players. I don't know why they have so many NHL players, but they do. So I guess hockey is big in Trenčín. And then they talk about Stanley Cup appearances in the town. It's been brought to the town 6 times. Stanley Cup. It's amazing. They talk about notable people. Most of them are ice hockey players. I've never heard of any of them because I'm American. I guess if you're Slovakian, you've heard of all of them. So that'll show me. Anyway, it looks like a really nice small town, has a lot of chess players over the years, and we're going to look at games spanning a lot of those years. Now, the only player on the list I was given who seems to be a grandmaster is Jan Plachetka, and the sponsor, Peter Joštic, is also a chess player, and he snuck one of his own games in. So that it's good to be the sponsor. Now, Jan is the only person on the list I was given of chess players from the town, which it says here in his Wikipedia article, that I know. And when I say I know, I've heard of another player, but I know Jan Plachetka. Before all of you were born, I played miniature golf with him in Belgium because I used to live in Belgium, and Jan was playing in a tournament in Belgium, and between rounds we went to play miniature golf with Vladimir Epeshin, another grandmaster. I think there was a 4th person, but I don't remember who that was because it was 35 years ago. I know Epeshin, Plachetka, and me were there playing miniature golf. Plachetka is a grandmaster, so it's insulting to me that his Wikipedia article is so small. So if you're from Slovakia or you know Jan, make his Wikipedia article bigger. He's 80 years old. He's still alive. That's good. And they have very short Wikipedia article. It tells you when he got the GM title, talks about a few of his tournaments, playing on the Czechoslovak Chess Olympiad from 80 to 86. According to the internets, this article, even though he's 80, he's still playing in tournaments, and he plays for the Slovak senior team. The other people don't have Wikipedia articles, and actually, I was very surprised that the second highest rated player doesn't have a Wikipedia article, because I've heard of him and he's pretty good. So, man, Wikipedia is slacking. Okay, so I want to look at the games in order of what I perceive to be their chess strength at their peak. And that way we save the best for last. That's the sponsor. The games aren't very long because I have a lot of games to look at, and I can't look at 5 games that are 50, 60 moves, because then we'll be going way over time. So I tried to show games that had a tactical flourish. And I'm not sure if players from the region play tactically a lot, or they're known for that, but in these games they are. So, okay, Jan is white. This game was played in 1974. Let me do some quick math. That was 51 years ago, and Plachetka is 80. So, I guess he was 29 or 30 at the time, if I did my math right. So that sounds like, near his peak. And he's playing Lothar Zinn, and they're playing in a GM tournament. This was in 1974. Our hero is white, and he played a line that I like to play. Fianchettoed his queen bishop early, and he started attacking. Okay, so I've had this position with white via different move orders. I played bishop b5, knight e5. You can't take the knight, because if I try to take the knight, the computer won't let me. It doesn't matter how many times I try, because the knight's pinned, and if you take with the queen, then you lose your queen. So the knight is untouchable. So bishop d6. White plays the usual bishop takes c6 check, ruining black's pawn structure on the queen side and maintaining the very strong knight on e5. And then f4. If I was a betting man, I would say I've had this position more than once. Somebody asked in the chat, is this the Nimzo-Indian variation of Zukertort opening? It does look like a reverse Nimzo-Indian. I haven't seen it called that, but you called it that, so that's good. Yeah. So it's like black's playing Nimzo-Indian, or white's playing against the Nimzo-Indian. Instead of white playing knight c3, black plays knight c6, and we get the same kind of position, except white's up a tempo because white's white. White goes first. Sometimes when that happens, when you have an opening that you can play with white and black, the engine doesn't care what color you are. So in like this position, castles, where it's white's turn to move, it's possible, if colors were reversed, then it would be black's turn to move here because he would be white. And then this position might pop up if you did a search of this position, except it would be the opposite color. So you would be confused. You'd be like, wait a minute, this isn't the position, this is the opposite color. And then sometimes the engine has white to move here, and sometimes black to move when the person with that position actually has the white pieces. So this position could definitely occur out of a Nimzo Indian, except it would be black's move here because black would have the white pieces. Just both sides can play the same opening. This actually happens with a lot of openings, but it's not talked about a lot. A lot of openings are just the reverse of another opening. In fact, the Sicilian defense, which is very common, is the English opening in reverse. And sometimes positions from the English opening and the Sicilian are the same position. It's just a different side to move. This is, and the guy said that, even though I didn't read it. That's pretty good. Okay, so if you have a course on the Nimzo Indian, and I did a chessable course, you can probably find this position, except colors are reversed, and it would be black's turn to move, which in my course would be white. Okay, so Plachetka is like a tempo up in sort of a normal position. White gave away the two bishops, and in compensation, Jan has the e5 square, and in the Nimzo Indian, when you have black, you want the e4 square. It's the same square, just white has it, so it's e5. And black's pawn structure, very suspicious. Doubled pawns, isolated pawns. Okay, so Plachetka plays for mate, which is good for us. It doesn't mean it's good for him, but when people play for mate and we see attacks and sacrifices, that's good for the audience. The audience doesn't want to see a boring draw where it's symmetrical, trade all the pieces, engine says all zeros. We want to see where it's double-edged. One side has the two bishops. One side has a better pawn structure. One side's attacking. One side's trying to build a big center. And we don't know who's better. The engine knows who's better, but we don't know. Okay, black played knight d7, which seriously attacks the e5 knight. And if somehow white can keep his knight there, black could play f6 and kick the knight out, then try to play e5, get a big center. Plachetka played rook h3, and his idea is if we keep capturing the knight on e5, then he has a fork in this position, queen h5, threatening checkmate, and threatening the bishop. That would be over. White's winning. Okay, so Plachetka gets his rook into the attack. Queen's ready to go to h5. And as far as I know, if he wins the game early, if he can checkmate quickly, maybe before the next round starts, he can play some miniature golf. What do I know? That's what he did with me. Okay, although when we did it, it was 1990. This game was played in 1974. Okay, black played g6, preventing queen h5, because queen h5 is annoying. And this position, I'm worried that people watching live, especially the sponsor, I can't have the sponsor getting injured during the lecture, and people watching on YouTube later, which is 99.9% of you, are going to fall out of your chair and injure yourself. So if you're watching this, put a seatbelt on, because now you're going to get surprised. I don't want you to get hurt. Jan played the most shocking move ever. The reason it's shocking is Black just prevented the move that he wanted to prevent, and Jan said, oh yeah? And I'm sure when White played Queen H5, Black was like, say what? Okay, and the mating variation is very easy. It doesn't take a grandmaster to see pawn takes queen, rook G3 check. This is the only legal move, and that's checkmate because it's checking with the knight and with the bishop. That's not difficult to see for a grandmaster. Okay. Although in 1974, I don't think he was a grandmaster yet. Now you can see why he became a grandmaster. And he's the toast of the town. Okay, so Black didn't want to get checkmated, but White's threatening checkmate. So Black played the only move that makes any sense. Knight F6. Now, if Queen H5 surprised you, don't take your seatbelt off because this is going to also surprise you. And after this, there's not so many surprises, but this was going to surprise you too. So Black is threatening pawn takes queen and knight takes queen. So you guys are frantically trying to figure out where to move the queen. And Jan plays knight G4, confusing the audience. Okay, now, again, one variation is very simple. Knight takes queen, checkmate. You don't need to be a grandmaster to see that, although it would help. Okay, now, if it was White's turn to move, knight takes knight check, leads to checkmate, and wins all of Black's pieces. Can't defend your knight, because if you defend your knight, I take it, and my bishop's defending my knight. And if my bishop wasn't defending my knight, and you took, I would play mate. And if you play knight takes knight, then it's mate. Okay, so Black only has one move after knight G4, and that's pawn takes queen. Okay, then Plachetka played knight takes knight check. The king is going to go to the diagonal where the bishop is, and then White can play knight takes D5 discovered check and get his queen back. Black has the worst pawn structure ever, and Black is going to be down 1, 2, or 3 pawns, depending on what happens next. Okay, I think the next move is a mistake, but the engine wouldn't agree because the engine would say, like, this is plus 1,000. Okay, he played king h8, and Plachetka didn't win his queen back, which he can do with knight e8 or knight takes d5. Those are both winning, I think. But instead, he played rook takes h5, threatening rook takes h7 mate. Rook takes h7 mate is not easy to stop. It's very difficult to stop. Black played h6, which stops mate. Chetka played knight takes d5 check, discovered check. And in this position, Black resigned. If Black moves the king, there's 2 places to move, because Black's in check, then we can take the queen. Then we have a choice. We can take on c5 or h6. I don't know which one is better, but they both win. I'm guessing taking on h6 is better, because I'm threatening mate, and then we leave Black with this disgusting pawn structure. And surprisingly, White has all of his pawns still, and White's up 3 pawns. So White's up 3 pawns, White's threatening mate, and White has a better pawn structure. So that's not playable. And I guess could play bishop e5, confusing the audience, because Black is a queen ahead. And now I suspect more than one move wins. In fact, I know more than one move wins. But the line that I like is taking the queen, taking the rook, and then in this position, white's up 2 pawns. Black has 2 pawns that are hanging, but I think a really strong move is c3. Because my knight can get out, but your bishop can't get out. And so white's 2 pawns up, and black's bishop is trapped. Although if white wants to be 3 pawns up, white can take either pawn. White's 3 pawns up. So in this position, the best black can do after knight takes d5 check is be 3 pawns down. And typically when you're down 3 pawns and you're playing in some kind of grandmaster tournament, people tend to resign. If your rating is under 1500, I wouldn't recommend it. I tell my students not to resign. It doesn't stop them, but I try to stop them. Can't stop them. Okay, but you're playing a grandmaster and you're down 3 pawns with no compensation, then you're going to lose. So that was a nice game. That was a nice game to start out with. And I didn't know any of these games before I prepared them for the lecture. Okay, now I'm going to get mad again. I'm easily mad. Okay. I've heard of Robert Tibensky. I can't pronounce his name, but I've heard of him. And he's over 2,400 FIDE, and he's an IM, and he doesn't have a Wikipedia article. What? I know a lot of players that are lower rated and not as titled that have Wikipedia articles. And typically, if your town has 55,000 people, I haven't heard of 2 of your players, but not in this case. The strongest small town in the world. Okay, he's playing Jan Markos. This was played in 1999 in the Slovakian Championship. Okay, and they played some kind of semi-Slav. And I say this a lot when I do commentary. I'm doing commentary on, let's say, a Super GM tournament. Carlsen's playing Nakamura, and Caruana is playing Arjun. I just made that up. And then Carlsen Nakamura after 12 moves is really boring. And Caruana Arjun after 12 moves, all the pieces are hanging. So now you're like, yay, that's the game to watch. But in reality, what usually happens when all the pieces are hanging on move 12 is it's theory, the players know it, they play lots of engine moves, and they get down quickly by trading to a drawn position. Other game is boring, the Nakamura game with Carlsen, and then after 10, 15 moves of strategical play, there's complications, and the game gets super exciting. That's exactly what happens in this game. This game is not exciting right now. Nothing happens for a long time. Then something happens for a long time. Okay, bishop e7, pretty passive. It doesn't look like black has a mating attack. Okay, it doesn't look like black's playing for the advantage. Black is just playing to equalize. It's sort of boring. Then black plays c5. Black could also play b6, bishop b7, then try to play c5. Okay, again, it looks like we're going to trade some pawns in the center. It's not going to be exciting. Okay, in this position, white played e4, and now the game gets super exciting. And when I'm giving a lecture, I like to show exciting games. I don't like to show games where the engine says all zeros for 40 moves, and then somebody hangs their knight in time trouble. Terrible. Okay, now here, black played a slightly unusual move, in my opinion. Took on c4, leaving white with the nice center. And then he said, I'm going to attack your center. And white said, I will gain space. And black said, d5, that's just the square for my knight. Maybe my knight will go to f4 later. Okay, so like if white's bishop was on c1, then black's knight could never go to f4. But then white's bishop would be on c1. Bishop on b2, it's sort of hitting against a rock. The bishop on b2 is not going to get active and start attacking. Okay, so double-edged position from sort of a boring opening. Knight d2, white wants to play queen h5 like Plachetka did, queen h7 mate, knight e4, knight d6. White's maneuvering the pieces. Black took on d4. White played knight e4 and said, I don't care about that pawn. I want to play knight d6. I'll take that pawn later. Knight f4. Knight's great on f4. And bishop's great on b7 now. Rook e1. I think white wants to play bishop f1. Stop knight takes bishop. Defend g2. And he defends his knight some more. Very solid move. Bishop b4, attacking the rook. Oops. And in my opinion, because this has happened to me, that's why it's my opinion. I think white didn't see bishop b4. Because white's next move indicates he didn't see bishop b4. And I've played moves like rook e1 and rook c1 when I'm white, and my opponent attacks my rook with their bishop, and I'm like, oh yeah. And then I have to move my rook somewhere. So I sort of look stupid. So that's what I feel happened to white. White didn't feel like pinning one of his own knights. So he just went back to f1, admitting his mistake. Black played knight c5. Black defends the pawn. Black's up a pawn. Every black piece is excellent. And white decided to trade knights. Knight takes c5. And now, if I was having a private lesson with a student, I would ask my student, should black take with the bishop or the pawn? And then my student would say, the bishop. And I would say, wrong. Then my student would say, okay, the pawn. And then I would say, wrong. Because they're both wrong. The instructions I gave to my student, which way do you take back, is a trick. Obviously, white expected black to take back on c5. But there's something better than taking a knight in chess. In fact, there's several things that are better. And the most better is checkmate. And with the knight on f4 and the bishop on b7, black played queen g5. And white was rated about 2250 FIDE, but he definitely missed queen g5. Truth hurts. There's nothing you can do. You can move, but you're going to get mated. If you play f3 blocking the bishop, never play f3. If you play g3 blocking the queen, knight h3 is checkmate. Looks like the Plachetka game. If you play knight e4, this is still mate. If you play bishop e4, I take it, and I'm still threatening mate. All you did was stop it for a move, and you lost a piece. There's nothing you can do. Queen g5 is devastating. The truth hurts. So white played knight takes c5 and was sure that black would take back, and black was ready with queen g5 and just mated white out of nowhere, and white had to resign. I'm always scared when I'm white and my opponent has this bishop against my king. I hate when that happens. Okay, so great game from Tibensky. Next player is also an IM, Miroslav Maslik. He has the white pieces. This was played, let me flip the board because he's white. This was played in the Slovakian Championship 2007. Black's name is Erik Oprea. I probably mispronounced both names. Okay, our hero is white. And what's funny about this, and the sponsor doesn't know this, I had this position yesterday on my stream, although I lost. Okay, but I have an addendum. Okay, when I lose to a lower rated player on the internet, I lose a lot of rating points, 10, 15. Okay, and I lost this game yesterday, and my opponent was 100 points higher than me. That's not surprising. But I got an email 2 hours ago from chess.com saying, fair play violation. One of your opponents violated fair play. Here's your rating points back. And I got 6 rating points. Well, I'm only losing 6 rating points if I lose to somebody higher than me. And that's the only guy I lost to that was higher than me. And so yesterday I lost in this position with white, but I got my rating points back because my opponent violated fair play. So I really didn't lose. See? When you're a grandmaster and you lose, the next day they're like, you didn't lose. Here's your rating points back. That's all. Okay. I think F5 is a mistake. My fair play breaking opponent didn't play that. Bishop B5 check. Excellent move. Take on F5. Black can't take back because it's illegal. And now what white wants to do is tell black to look over there. And when black's looking away, white wants to put his knight on E6. Okay, then black resigns. So that's going to be white's plan for the next few moves. Knight F6, knight F3. Here we come. Bishop takes, knight takes, queen D7, C4, A6. And now I would ask my students, did white play knight A3 or knight C3? Again, tricking my students. White played queen A4 because if you take the knight, you lose your rook. And if you do nothing, knight C7 check is winning. Queen takes knight is illegal. We're going to do a Yasser Seirawan. We'll play a nothing move. Knight C7 check. Queen takes knight is illegal because it's pinned. Then white takes the queen. Then white takes the rook. Then black resigns. So black has to stop knight C7 check. Black played knight takes D5, confusing the audience. Now if I play knight C7, you take it. So that's silly. And if I take the knight, you take my knight. That's fair. Okay. Now, if you remember what I said 1 minute ago, you'll know what white did here. But you have to remember. Knight G5. White wants to play knight E6. Man, it looks like white's going to play knight E6. That's going to be annoying. Bishop E7. Yay, knight E6. Now, white's threatening several moves that win. Knight here check wins. Pawn takes knight wins. Probably knight takes G7 check wins. Black played king F7. Now, white followed one of my rules. Always retreat. White wants to play queen takes knight, which is crushing. White wants to play queen H5 check, which is also pretty good. If you move your knight, because it's attacked twice, then I have access to the C7 square again. Black took the knight and let white take the knight. And now black did something very funny. So if you don't like my lecture, because you don't like the chess content, you will find this move funny. So you'll get some comedic value out of the lecture. Black played a move that I would never play unless I was kidding. On the other hand, if you told me to suggest a good move for black, I can't help you. Black's getting crushed. Black avoided all of this nonsense and played king f6. The truth hurts. Man, I wouldn't play king f6. Okay, so Maslik started attacking g4, and black said, oh, I'll just play h6 and defend g5. And white said, I have another pawn to attack with, h4. This looks more like a bullet game or a blitz game than a slow game. A slow game, you don't see kings on f6, unless you watch my lectures. Queen c8. I can't say I fully understand that move. Bishop g5 check instead of g5 check. This keeps the pawn defended on f5. Okay, and white calculated, if you take and I take, you have one legal move, and I go double check. You have two legal moves. King here is not good because queen f7's mate and rook takes rook is mate. That's not a good move. Okay, so king e8's forced. Okay, then I can play rook takes rook check. Then I can play queen e6 check. Then I can play queen takes bishop check. Okay, and you understand that white is a little bit winning. And probably, if I turned my engine on the last 5 moves, it would have told me my moves were wrong, that I had forced mate. But if this is wrong, I don't want to be right. Black's going to lose more material now. Man, truth hurts. Okay, so black didn't do that, because that's terrible. Black played king f7, knight d8 check, double check. Again, this is mate. We already saw that. So king e8, queen f7 check. And now, irrespective of whether black plays legal move number 1 or legal move number 2, white plays queen takes bishop mate. This is mate, and this is mate, because the knight defends c6. So after queen f7 check, black resigned. A crushing victory. Every victory by the small townspeople of Trenčín, more crushing than the next. The dogs approve. They're getting violent because white's position is so good. Man, what a crush. And in this game, black was not accused of fair play violations. They said black played very fairly. Maybe Kramnik accused him, I don't know. Okay, next game, this player is slightly less than 2,200. Peter Joštic. And he has the white pieces. He's playing Lukas Vaslik. Okay, and this was played in Slovakia, in the league they have, in 2023, in January. So this is a pretty recent game. White's rating, oh, okay, I got the games out of order. This is from our sponsor. I thought I was looking at another game. We'll look at that next. This is from our sponsor, Peter Joštic, and he's 2065, and he's playing in 1877. This game was played only 2 years ago. So that's one good thing about sponsoring a lecture. You get to show your own games. Not usually, but he's from the town too. Okay, King's Gambit, the most exciting opening. D5 is what I play with black. Okay, I usually don't face that. I usually face e takes d5. I've actually had black in this position by transposition. I'm not a fan of bishop g4. I think black needs to try to castle at some point. Okay, bishop c5 walks into d4. So I'm not a big fan of that. Yeah, usually when black is taking pawns in the king's gambit and not developing the pieces, then things work out badly. White has a huge lead in development. Now white's threatening to win immediately with knight c7. This is called I've said it 1,000 times. It's called a interference tactic. It only took me 10 seconds. The pawn is interfering with the bishop. So if pawn takes, knight c7 check wins the rook again. So black played knight c6. And it's also opens the diagonal for the white queen, which I just now saw. So d6 not only threatens knight c7, it also threatens queen takes b7, which wins everything. So black played knight c6, allowing knight c7 check. Knight takes rook. White's up a rook. Bishop b4. Stop the game, it's too exciting. Rook d1 check. And now we're very fortunate that black played the move he did. And the only one more fortunate than us is our sponsor. Because our sponsor was able to play a brilliant move due to his opponent's mistake. Now, if black plays correctly here, black is completely lost. So it's the kind of mistake you don't really mind. Play king c8. If you're watching on YouTube, which again is 99.9% of you, white to play and win immediately. And of course, probably if white castles, white's winning. But I'm talking about the game ended. And to be perfectly frank, this looks like Paul Morphy was white. King's Gambit, sacrificed some pawns, got some tactical tricks in, and then finished brilliantly. Even sponsors can play good games. As long as we don't look at every game the sponsor ever played and just like the one or two best, then it's good. Okay, hopefully you paused your video and you're all as happy as the sponsor is. The sponsor played queen takes c6 check, confusing his opponent. His opponent was so confused that he resigned. Okay, there's two legal moves. King b8 loses to everything. It loses to rook d8 mate. It loses to queen e8 mate, which is a really cool mate, by the way. And it loses to queen c7, followed by queen c8 mate, queen d8 mate, or rook d8 mate. Obviously, if the guy sacks a queen, you got to take it. But the guy didn't take it. Boo! When your opponent sacks their queen for mate, don't resign, take their queen and let them mate you. Okay, so black has to take the queen. Now, this is very unusual mate. Bishop a6 check, king b8, rook d8 mate. You don't see that mate very often. I told you black should have castled. So the king's gambit gets another victim. Normally, I don't like showing the sponsors' games because the sponsors are usually several hundred points lower rated than the topic. But in this case, we make an exception because look at that. That's pretty cool. So after queen takes c6, black resign. Okay, and the last game is from Miroslav Kijac, Kijac. It doesn't matter what I say, it's pronounced wrong. And he's 2185. He's higher rated than the sponsor, but there's no way he can top that game. And this was played in the Slovakian Team Championship 2005. Okay, French defense. Okay, still theory. Okay, bishop e2 is the main move. Okay, bishop b5 is the main move. But obviously knight c6 and c takes d4 are playable. Okay, and now most theoreticians recommend c4 here. He took on c5. That's also a move. b4, sacrificing his f-pawn, hoping the bishop on f2 gets trapped. So black always played bishop f8. Sometimes the bishop on f2 gets trapped. Queen a6, threatening the bishop on e2, trade all the pieces. So finally, black did what he wanted to do and traded off the white squared bishops. Black needs to develop quickly before white gets an attack. Yeah, knight b3 lets black play knight f5. Now I prefer black. h5 stops white from playing g4. The knight is solidified on f5. I don't like a4. Always play f6, attacking the e5 pawn. This is typical in the advanced French, attacking the e5 pawn. Okay, now white's pawn structure looks sort of strange. Now black threatens rook takes c3. Queen f3 defends the pawn. b6, trying to kill the knight on b3. And maybe my knight can go to b7 and d6 and c5. King f7's good. We can't castle. We need to keep our h-pawn defended. Okay, very complicated position. D takes c4. Knight takes c4 with the discovered attack on the queen. Queen b7. Let's trade queens. Black's king's on f7, so trading queens seems like a good idea. White doesn't want to trade queens. White threatens queen takes... No, queen takes e6 isn't a threat. The threat is rook takes knight, then queen takes e6. So the knight's defending e6. Rook g8, threatening mate in 1 with advantage. g3, stopping mate in 1. h4, who's attacking whom? g4, very suspicious. h3, threatening mate again. Queen e4. And now black played the winning tactic. Although, I think if black doesn't play the winning tactic, trades queens, plays rook takes g4 check, black's got to be winning that position. But that would be a long endgame where black's winning. Then it'll be sort of boring to show the game. Instead, black followed a very important Finegold rule. Now, I have so many rules that every legal move follows one of my rules. You can always follow my rules. That's right. One of the viewers says, always sack the exchange. Bam. Okay, and this isn't as complicated as some of the tactics we've been looking at. White has two possible moves. Take the rook or take the queen. If you take the rook, then queen g2 is mate. And if you take the queen, I recapture, and I just took your knight on c4 for 3. If black wants to get cute, black could actually take on g4 check first, and then take the queen. It doesn't matter. Either way, black's up a piece. a4's hanging, f4's hanging, G4 is hanging terrible. Okay, so after rook takes c4, black resigned. This game was an upset because white was a higher rated player. His name, which I will now mispronounce, was Tamas Szegi. Szegi? Yeah, I don't know. Nobody knows except the sponsor and the players. And anybody in Slovakia. So those were some great games from people from the town of Trenčín in Slovakia. Obviously, the sponsor is proud of his town. So many good chess players, famous grandmaster, some IMs, and easy to find games of these players on the internet. I tried to find games that had some nice tactics, that showed the strength of the players. And this game was very complicated because both kings were exposed. But in the end, black got the better of white by having the rook opposite the king, the queen coming to g2, the pawn on h3. And white's pieces look nice, but there's no threats. So the truth hurts. Anyway, I want to thank our sponsor again, Joštic, Peter. If you want to sponsor a lecture, you can find the information in the video, in the description. Contact my wife, Karen, that you could sponsor a video, maybe on your town, although your town's not going to be as strong. I'm Grandmaster Ben Finegold. I hope you enjoyed the lecture. Please like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.